The United States says that peace talks between the Israelis and Palestinians will resume in Washington on Monday after nearly 3 years. The American Secretary of State John Kerry is the man responsible for getting the two sides back together after talks collapsed in 2010.
Kerry spoke over the telephone with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. They agreed to send negotiators to Washington to prepare for peace talks. The envoys are scheduled to meet on Monday and Tuesday. Kerry has visited the Middle East over and over in an effort to coax the two sides back into negotiations.
After much political wrangling, the Israeli cabinet has agreed to release 104 Palestinian prisoners. It's hoped the move, bitterly opposed by some sectors of Israeli society, will restart peace talks with the Palestinians. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas had demanded that the prisoners be freed in order to resume negotiations. There are moments in which tough decisions must be made for the good of the nation, and this is one of those moments.
Outside the cabinet meeting, angry protesters had urged the government to reject the move.
You don't release murderous terrorists. It's an indescribable crime, spitting in the face of the bereaved families and the Israeli people. Past experience shows that they will return to terror activity. We can't repeat this mistake.
There's anger and distrust on both sides.
My nephew has been in jail for 20 years, his entire youth, and we were prevented from visiting him. So we hope, God willing, to see him as soon as possible. We're worried because we can't trust the Jews.
The last major prisoner release was in 2011. 1,000 Palestinian prisoners were freed in exchange for Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit, who had been held by Palestinian militants for over 5 years.
There was another rally in Gaza. Gaza is ruled by Hamas, who will not take part in planning the talks.
We reject the return of the Palestinian Authority to the negotiations, because the Israeli occupation is the only side that will benefit from it. Also, the release of any Palestinian prisoner is our right. It is not a favor from the Israeli occupation.
The chief negotiator, Saeb Erekat, is expected to be among the PA's representatives in Washington. He says it's about time the Israelis agreed to the release.
This Israeli cabinet decision is an overdue step towards the implementation of the Sharm el-Sheikh Agreement of 1999, whereby Israel committed to release all the pre-Oslo prisoners.
And despite the opposition, this is one step towards getting Israelis and the Palestinian Authority back to the same table, even if it's only for talks about talks at this stage.
After years of impasse and mistrust, there's much scepticism on both sides. Indeed, demonstrations that the coming talks will bear fruit.
The demonstrators wanted to send a political message that they oppose the talks. The continued suppression of the right to self-expression and the right to demonstrate is completely unacceptable and will ultimately not stop the voices that are against the talks.
To avoid speculation and rumours, the US Secretary of State John Kerry has said he will be the only point of communication about any progress in the talks, at least in the initial stages.